Astute Quotations, Part 8. Executives can only think in terms of what they've already seen. It's hard for them to think in terms of what has never been done before. Film director George Lucas. High thoughts must have high language. Aristophanes. Falling is not in my vocabulary. Jean-Paul Petit, tightrope walker. Language commonly stresses only one side of any interaction. Anthropologist Gregory Bateson. A pretext is never lacking to him who would break with a friend. Bernard of Clairvaux, a mystic from 1090 to 1153. In deep sadness, there is no room for sentimentality. William S. Burroughs. A tidy laboratory means a lazy chemist. Chemist Jean Berzelius, 1799 to 1848. Follow your inclinations with due regard to the policeman around the corner. W. Somerset Maugham. One is never weaker than when one appears to have everybody's support. Émile Ollivier, 1825 to 1913, French Prime Minister. Now I know the full power of evil. It makes ugliness seem beautiful and goodness seem ugly and weak. Playwright August Strindberg. The thwarting of the instinct to love is the root of all sorrow. Divinity itself is insulted when it is repressed. Freya Stark, British travel writer. He was dull in a new way, and that made many people think him great. Samuel Johnson, 1709 to 1784, who was probably listening to Kurt Cobain from the grave. Always enter the conversation already taking place in the customer's mind. Robert Collier, self-help writer, 1885 to 1950. Never cut what you can untie. Joseph Joubert, 1754 to 1824. Great is truth, but still greater, from a practical point of view, is silence about truth. By simply not mentioning certain subjects, totalitarian propagandists have influenced opinion much more effectively than they could have by the most eloquent denunciations. Aldous Huxley. A spectator can describe what I'm doing on the tennis court. He is living in the realm of evaluation and explanation, but I'm playing in the world of action. While there is a relationship between his description and what is occurring on the court, the two are clearly not the same. Failing to make this simple distinction can lead to being satisfied with an explanation about action and may hide from our view the source of the action. Werner Erhard, quoted in Industry Week magazine in June of 1987. The formula 2 plus 2 equals 5 is not without its attractions. Dostoevsky. If you want to live a long life, focus on making contributions. Hans Selye. When you are face to face with a difficulty, you are up against a discovery. Lord Kelvin. Skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms and tempests. Tempest. Epicurus from the 4th century, rather the 3rd century BC. A man of character finds a special attractiveness in difficulty, since it is only by coming to grips with difficulty that he can realize his potentialities. Charles de Gaulle, or Charles de Gaulle if you prefer. Cease to use your hands, and you have lopped off a huge part of your consciousness. George Orwell. A purely disembodied human emotion is a non-entity. Psychologist William James. I'll perform miracles if you want me to stoop that low. The British indie band Adorable from I'll Be Your Saint, 1993. Time is not a line, but a series of now points. Taisen Deshimaru, swordmaster and Zen Buddhist teacher. There is music in the spacing of the spheres. Pythagoras. The byproduct is sometimes more valuable than the product. Havelock Ellis. I cannot afford to waste my time making money. Geologist, biologist Jean-Louis Agassiz, 1807 to 73, when offered a lucrative lecture tour. It is not always by plugging away at a difficulty and sticking at it that one overcomes it, but rather often by working on the one next to it. Certain people and certain things need to be approached on an angle. André Gide, Nobel Prize winner for literature in 1947. An architect proves his skill by turning the defects of a site into advantages. Bernini, sculptor, architect, 1598 to 1680. If everything seems under control, you're just not going fast enough. Racer Mario Andretti. The real tragedy was that 15 hadn't been colored yet. Steve Spurrier, NFL and college football coach, regarding a fire at the Auburn football dorm that destroyed 20 books. The heart feels, the head compares. Chateaubriand, 1768 to 1848. You are living in your own private Idaho, underground like a wild potato. The B-52s. A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts, so he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusion. Alan Watts. The best game plan in the world never blocked or tackled anybody. Vince Lombardi. Coaches who can outline plays on a blackboard are a dime a dozen. Vince Lombardi. A common mistake among those who work in sport is spending a disproportional amount of time on X's and O's as compared to time spent learning about people. Mike Krzyzewski, Duke University basketball. A desk is a dangerous place from which to view the world. Sign on the desk of Louis Gerstner, former president of American Express. Cricket is full of theorists who can ruin your game in no time. Ian Botham, English cricketer. Great players do little things that don't show up on the scorecard. New York Yankee announcer John Sterling. The key blocks that pry a crack in the defense are almost always hidden in the hurly-burly at the line of scrimmage. Andy Robustelli, NFL Hall of Famer. Show me a rugby team with high-scoring wings, and I'll show you a team with good centers. Sir Fred Allen, captain and coach of New Zealand's All Blacks. Little minds are interested in the extraordinary, great minds in the commonplace. Albert Hubbard. Gravity has guided the evolutionary destiny of every plant and animal species and has dictated the size and shape of our organs and limbs. Ralph Pelligra, Director of Medical Research for NASA. A brain without a body could not think. Moshe Feldenkrais. Here's another fine mess, or that was the word they said, it was fine mess, but it was actually, here's another nice mess you've gotten me into. Hardy to Laurel. The best skill at cards is knowing when to discard. Balthasar Gracian, 1601 to 58. It is not hard to compose, but what is fabulously hard is to leave the superfluous notes under the table. Johann Brahms. The Detroit String Quartet played Brahms last night. Brahms won. Bennett Cerf, publisher and humorist. He who makes timid requests invites denial. Seneca, from the 1st century A.D. Happiness hates the timid. Playwright Eugene O'Neill. Many stay a long time in purgatory who, although not great sinners, have lived tepidly. Anne Catherine Emmerich, 1774 to 1824, a mystic and visionary. The man gave me that weak, almost submissive look that some men have, even when they are expressing the most imperious of orders. French author Catherine Millet. A shyness that is criminally vulgar. The Smiths, from How Soon Is Now? When the imagination sleeps, words are emptied of their meaning. Albert Camus. You can't depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus. Mark Twain. When ideas fail, words come in very handy. Goethe. No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. No surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader. Poet Robert Frost. Mistakes are almost always of a sacred nature. Never try to correct them. On the contrary, understand them thoroughly. After that, it will be possible for you to sublimate, or in other words, overcome or surmount them. Salvador Dali. Adversity comes with instruction in his hand. Welsh proverb. When a learned man errs, he makes a learned error. Arab proverb. It'll be the news in Welsh. Victor Spinetti, from A Hard Day's Night, upon learning that Ringo was missing. It is unbecoming for a cardinal to ski badly. Future Pope John Paul II when asked whether a cardinal should be skiing. You decide to wait for your pitch. Then, as the ball starts toward the plate, you think about your stance. And then you think about your swing. And then you realize the ball that went past you was a strike, and it was your pitch. Bobby Mercer, New York Yankees. Opportunity is coy, is swift, is gone, before the slow, the unobservant, the indolent, or the careless can seize her. Orison Swett Marden, founder of Success magazine. Where there is no internal scar, there is no external evil. Japanese proverb. On the chessboard, lies and hypocrisy do not survive long. Grandmaster Emanuel Lasker. Nothing fools you better than the lie you tell yourself. Teller, the magician. When you play big, you make big mistakes. Werner Erhard. Great errors seldom originate but with men of great minds. Petrarch, 1304 to 1374. It's better to lose a game by making a move than lose it by sitting on my ass. Earl Weaver, former manager, Baltimore Orioles. A mistake in judgment isn't fatal, but too much anxiety about judgment is. Film critic Pauline Kael. The higher you go, the more mistakes you are allowed. Right at the top, if you make enough of them, it's considered to be your style. Movie and dance icon Fred Astaire. The visionary is the only true realist. Film director Federico Fellini. There are sadistic scientists who hurry to hunt down errors instead of establishing the truth. Madame Curie. It is impossible to work under conditions where they confuse negativity with objectivity. Basketball announcer Marv Albert. Every obnoxious fan has a wife at home who dominates him. Al McGuire, basketball coach and broadcaster. The best use one can make of his mind is to distrust it. Francois Fenelon, 1651 to 1715. Ready, fire, aim. Attributed to an executive at Cadbury. Pressure is something you feel when you don't know what the hell you're doing. Peyton Manning, quarterback for the Denver Broncos. The bats aren't the same length, and it's further between the bases. Reggie Jackson, regarding pressure during playoff games. The person I fear most in the last 2 rounds is myself. Golfer Tom Watson. Great works are done when one is not calculating and thinking. D.T. Suzuki. When they fail, winners ask themselves, "What did I do right?" Sales trainer Tom Hopkins. The problem with you, son, is that all your brains are in your head. Bill Shankly, former Liverpool manager. Men over 60 years of age should never run at all for anything, not even to catch a train. Sir James Cantley, MD, from his book Physical Efficiency, 1906. If you hear a voice within you say, "You cannot paint," then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. Vincent van Gogh. The French fry is my canvas. Ray Kroc, architect of the McDonald's empire. The track is my canvas, and the car is my brush. Graham Hill, Formula One champ. A gymnast's mind falls off the balance beam before her body does. Dan Millman, from his book Body Mind Mastery, 1999. Competitive sports are played mainly on a 5.5-inch court, the space between your ears. Bobby Jones, co-founder of the Masters tournament. A good darts player who can count can always beat a brilliant player who can't. World darts champion Leighton Rees. There isn't a hole out there that can't be birdied if you just think. There isn't one that can't be bogeyed if you stop thinking. Bobby Jones, regarding Augusta. Never allow any innovation in religion, because the peace of the state depends on it. Gaius Sulnius Maecenas, from the 1st century BC. It is wonderful when a calculation is made how little the mind is actually employed in the discharge of any profession. Samuel Johnson. In all pointed sentences, some degree of accuracy must be sacrificed to conciseness. Samuel Johnson. Whenever a man has cast a longing eye on them, meaning political positions, a rottenness begins in his conduct. Thomas Jefferson. The word is the verb, and the verb is God. Victor Hugo. Plunge it in deep water, it comes up more beautiful. Horace. The importance of a scientific work can be measured by the number of previous publications it makes superfluous to read. David Hilbert, German mathematician, 1862 to 1943. It is hard for a woman to define her feelings in language which is chiefly made by men to express theirs. Thomas Hardy. Men are not hanged for stealing horses, but that horses may not be stolen. Lord Halifax. There is always one moment in childhood when the door opens and lets the future in. Graham Greene. Love of our country is another of those specious illusions which have been invented by impostors in order to render the multitude the blind instruments of their crooked designs. William Godwin, 1756 to 1836. If you can actually count your money, then you are not really a rich man. John Paul Getty. Inflation is the one form of taxation that can be imposed without legislation. Milton Friedman. Frozen anger. Freud's definition of depression. It is a capital mistake to theorize before you have all the evidence. It biases the judgment. And that was by Arthur Conan Doyle. That's what happens when I go on to read the next one before I finish the first one. It's like trying to throw the ball back into the infield before you catch it in your glove. You think you are dying for your country. You die for the industrialists. Anatole France, 1844 to 1924. Dare to be naive. Buckminster Fuller. Always go to other people's funerals, otherwise they won't go to yours. Yogi Berra. The will of God will not take you where the grace of God cannot keep you. Anonymous. Whoever knows the source of that one, please email me. He doubly benefits the needy who gives quickly. Publilius Syrus from the 1st century BC. In his own grease I made him fry. Chaucer. Intellectual passion drives out sensuality. Leonardo. Shun those studies in which the work that results dies with the worker. Leonardo. The attempt to get out of the trap is the trap. Werner Erhard. My books are water. Those of the great geniuses are wine. Everybody drinks water. Mark Twain. What worries you masters you. John Locke. Mere goodness can achieve little against the power of nature. Sell a man a fish he eats for a day. Teach a man how to fish, you ruin a wonderful business opportunity. Karl Marx. Landlords, like all other men, like to reap where they never sowed. Karl Marx. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. With people with only modest ability, modesty is mere honesty. But with those who possess great talent, it is hypocrisy. Arthur Schopenhauer, 1788 to 1960. What you are trying the hardest to hide is exactly what you broadcast about yourself the most. Dr. Phil McGraw. If at first the idea doesn't sound preposterous, then there's no hope for it. Einstein. Be wisely worldly, but not worldly wise. Francis Quarles, 1592 to 1644. Men of most renowned virtue have sometimes, by transgressing, most truly kept the law. Milton. He that complies against his will is of his own opinion still. Samuel Butler. It is impossible to please all the world and one's father at the same time. Jean de La Fontaine, 1621 to 1695. Do you wish people to think well of you? Then don't speak well of yourself. Blaise Pascal. Liberality consists less in giving a great deal than in gifts well-timed. Jean de la Bruyere, 1645 to 1696. Vision is the art of seeing things invisible. Jonathan Swift. If triangles had a god, he would have 3 sides. Charles de Secondat, 1689 to 1755. This completes Astute Quotations, Part 8.